I don't know if this was a good idea. Hello, welcome to and read another chapter. It has been a long time since I have filmed anything for this channel. I do not feel like my reading has gone so well this year, and it's kind of funny since I did a collab only last year about making time to read when you're a busy mom. And I have been making time to read, but it's for editing purposes and, well, review purposes. So, not a whole lot going on. But I do have a stack of books here, and I'm going to do this in two parts because I have books that I've done for audio and for Kindle, and I need a little bit more time to kind of go over and see which ones those are. So without further ado, in no particular order of how I've read this because it's been a while and I won't remember, we're going to start with Death Valley Double Cross by Dana Mentick. And I requested to review this one from Celebrate Lit because, well, I'm from the Mojave Desert. Death Valley is not too far from me. And I was kind of looking forward to kind of reading a mystery that takes place in my area. However, the Mojave Desert is vast, and this takes place more in Nevada than it does in California, which is where I'm from. So there was that, but definitely the dry heat, the emptiness, the desertness of it all was portrayed very well in here. It opens up with somebody delivering a dog that's pretty much on its, like the one that nobody will choose. He is delivering dog to this apartment out in the middle of nowhere. And the gal that opens the door up is the one that jilted him X number of years earlier. And she pretty much like flings him in, slams the door, and everything just kind of takes off from there. There was a lot of suppressed feeling, emotional love. This is a love-inspired suspense romance. So there is a lot of that in there. I think I still ended up giving it 3.5 stars. For me, the mystery of it was super, like I could predict a lot of things that were going to happen because a lot of these kind of follow a formula. But insofar as, because they are very formulaic, is that even a word? Because they do literally, I'm looking across at a state highway where all the trucks are coming through. This may not have been the best decision, but it's still quieter than my house right now, which is kind of interesting to think about. Even though it follows a lot of the formula, it was a really pleasant read and kind of came just at a right time in the sense that I just wanted something light and easy to read just to kind of get back into reading. And I knew that a review was coming up, so I actually got ahead of the game instead of waiting to the last minute. So that was really fun, and I did enjoy it. And I do have a blog post related to that, and I'll leave that and any others that I've done a blog review for. It'll be linked down below, and I believe in the description box at all times is my Goodreads link, so you can see more details about that. Okay, I have been reading these Heroines of World War II books. I have read two so far. One had to do with a gal basically decoding letters, and they find one from this doll seller, and basically they're trying to figure out what the code is and what's going on here and all of that. And it was really interesting. I liked that one. And then the second one, which I believe was Picture of Hope, she is a photographer for a newspaper, and I really liked that one. It dealt, I believe that was by Les Tolsma? Oh goodness. I don't know, but you'll have seen a picture at some point. And that will play a part later, but I really liked that one. I think she did a phenomenal job with these kids that has special needs, and just even the character of, she would drive me crazy, but there was a development of growing and learning in that, and I really, really appreciated that. This one, Mrs. Witherspoon Goes to War by Mary Davis. I'll be honest, I didn't like our character, and I don't remember much about this book. Really unfortunate. She's gotta be up her bonnet, and she's not likable. Hey, son. And to be honest, I don't remember the conclusion. I remember nothing. So I might have to go back and reread this, because there was, I know it has to do with her being a pilot and her trying to prove herself as a woman. And it feels like a lot of books right now are dealing with that, like trying to prove yourself as a woman and making it in a man's world. And to be honest, just because I've read so much about it, I'm kind of over it. So I think that might have been some of it. I think I picked it up, started reading it, and I'm like, another one. So this one, I can't tell you anything about it. I don't remember my star rating. I don't remember anything. Well, that was an interesting review for that one. A Rose for the Resistance. I feel like this author took the Nightingale and kind of Christianized it, but she did her own version of it. And it's really hard to explain how I mean that without basically ruining the whole plot. But it's not the Nightingale. It's not. But there's elements of it that make you wonder if it inspired where she went with this. And so this one is about a young girl who basically is very go along with whatever they say. We'll keep our head down and we'll be fine. And her mother has lost her husband to the war. She's lost other son. She's lost several family members to the war. So the mom is a very bitter person. And she basically, what's her name? Rosalie. She is kind of like the glue that kind of tries to hold everything together, but also the one that, nobody really likes. Her younger brother that she's trying to keep safe for mom's sake is basically the pet of the family, and nothing Rosalie will ever do is going to be good enough for her mom. But what I really did like about this is that we have a German officer who's basically kind of sheltered himself as well. Kind of keep your head above water, do whatever they tell you to do so that you don't cause trouble, and so you don't basically are a German officer defying Germany. And so we have kind of his point of view, well, not really his point of view, but his story in here. Well, it is his point of view. That was really poorly worded. See what you made me do? I'm flustered now. We get his point of view, and just as a German officer, you kind of see him start to shift, and I really liked that. I really did enjoy this. Like, the more I'm talking about it, I think I gave it 4 stars, and it's probably like 4.75. There were some things in here that I felt were too rushed. There were some things in here that I kind of was like, that was predictable. And, when you've read so many books, things are going to be predictable. Okay, that's just going to be a fact of life. But you had moments where you were like, you could have done this. And okay. So I think that's why at the end I'm just a little bit, and I think there was a faith element in here. Yeah, she claims to be a Christian, and yet the only time she's going to pull it out is at random moments that you're just like, really, that was the best you can do. So I think that was one that really kind of bothered me about this, and I've talked long enough about that. Krista from Brooks and Jams had basically a read along with this. I really enjoyed it. I even got to go in a live with them and just kind of like hold my tongue. Hold my tongue, because I had so many thoughts and I just wanted to keep talking and going. And you know, the thing about those lives that I really appreciate is that you know, you have an idea and you have stuff to share, and then people bring other things into it, and so then that sparks like more ideas, and then you have more things you want to share, and you're just like, shush, 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 you know, we can't be here forever. So I really, really enjoyed that. I got a lot out of this insofar as the book, The Celebration of Discipline. Ouch. This was an ouch book. There was definitely some really good things. He is Quaker, I believe. Quaker, or maybe he has like a Quaker background. It looks like he's an intra-church, which I believe combines a lot of churches and beliefs together, which I have some qualms with. It's kind of like it's a utopia idea. It would be nice. It's not practical. And to try to make it as such means we're compromising, and if we believe it to be truth, we're compromising on truth. So, yeah. Anyway, so I think that makes some sense with some things that I did have an issue with in here. Sometimes he seemed way too just out there. I don't know how to describe it. It was just like he had this Pentecostal, which I am not. I'm not one at all. Just I don't know how to describe it. I genuinely don't. Just this like burst of ideas that just I think like flowed too fast, and he was putting them down, and I'm just like, how'd you go from this to this? But to understand me more fully, I do not like, well, I didn't appreciate A.W. Tozer's The Pursuit of Holiness. Those books, yeah, I had some qualms with those too. So there you go. Now you kind of know where I stand. But insofar as a whole book, wow, there were some points in here that went ouch. I really think that personally, I would read Elizabeth Elliot's Discipline. She can get kind of legalistic, in my opinion, but she definitely works to put her beliefs and line them up with scripture. He uses scripture, but I feel like it's more pulled in to support what he's saying rather than the reverse. Is that exegesis or exegesis or something like that? I'm not sure what that is. Okay. I think it was this one. I had a group, I had this on my Wilkin shelf, and now I can't remember if this is the one we did or the orange one. I don't remember. But this is None Like Him by Jen Wilkin. Christina's Shelves, Shatona Havig, and Lovely Day with Holly and I read this as a group, and that was one of the most fun groups we ever had. I loved this book. It was not... okay, I loved this book. It made me think, and I have some takeaways from it that I really appreciate. It is not my favorite Jen Wilkin book. Somebody said that it almost went like Rick Warren, and then kind of came back, and I think that's exactly it. So once again, instead of using scripture to support or making your points that are supported by scripture, it almost turned more into story circumstances that illustrated what she was trying to say, and then threw in some scripture there at random points. So there were some issues that I had with this. Again, this is like my least favorite. Women of the Word, I loved that book so much. It was probably the first or second book that I legit bought several copies of and gave to people. I don't normally do stuff like that because everybody just has different tastes, everybody has different beliefs, and to say that y'all need to read this book is not me. Okay, there's just too many variables in that. But I knew a group of ladies that I'm with would really appreciate that and really glean a lot from that, so I got it for them. One of you, I think you watched this channel, I don't remember, but one of you sent me the Barnes & Noble gift card that, you sent me a Barnes & Noble gift card, and so I got her next book, which I believe has to do with the Ten Commandments, so I'm really looking forward to that one. And ladies, if you read this with us, and if anybody wants to do it as a read-along, hook me up on Instagram. I am Sodbuster Living on Instagram. I am not making a separate Instagram account for my book reading. Too much to do. Moving on. Anything But Simple, My Life as a Mennonite by Lucinda J. Miller. This one I also read as a review, and I don't remember my review, but I know letting this sit for a while and let me think and ponder. When you're trying to write a review, especially for my blog and for the blog tours that they're on, I try to give some of the good points, and I try to give some of my concerns with the book. And those usually have to be done pretty quickly. I've thought on this one a lot, and to be honest, I was like, oh, I would like to read more in this series, which is the Plain Spoken, which have to do with points of view from the Amish and Mennonite. First of all, I live in a Amish community, and up until moving here, I pretty much idolized, I don't even like to use that word, it's not quite right, but when I was in my teen years, I actually wanted to become Amish. I loved the simple idea of life. I loved the idea of making everything by hand, and in our area, with our Amish in our area, that was basically Beverly Lewis mindset. That is not the reality of the Amish up here, who cuss, smoke, drink, and don't make everything from scratch. Not to mention some other things that I had no idea was in this cult, and I'm going to call it that. So there's my controversy thing about it. But I'm still very curious, and Mennonite basically kind of separated from the Amish, usually due to religious beliefs. So for them, they brought in more of the grace of Jesus Christ. And this book, from Lucinda Miller's point of view, we definitely get a real look at one of the Mennonites and her family and all of that. And she has a fascinating story. But I think she wants to be a writer too much, that she brings in the nostalgia and the whimsicalness of writing and tries to mesh it too much with being practical and real and honest and all of that. And so sometimes you're reading this and I just felt like I was being whiplashed a lot with reflections, and I'm like, how does that work with what you're talking about here? But as a whole scope of the chapter, does this even need to be in here? I'm so lost at what's going on. So there was a lot of that. However, the insight to this particular family and this particular part, since they came from Indiana and they thought them a little too loose, which I'm like, it kind of fits actually. They went to Wisconsin, I believe, where they're a little bit more strict. So I thought that was very interesting, and yeah, it was enjoyable. But insofar as a whole read continuation, I mean, I don't really know what to say. It was interesting, but I probably won't read anymore, just because I don't know. I got to read another True Colors crime. This is by Liz Tolsma, and this is The Silver Shadow. This is where it'll be interesting to see if the one Picture of Hope that I'm thinking of is by Liz Tolsma. I wonder if she has. The reason I'm wondering is this one was okay for me. I've really been liking these True Colors, and this one was just okay. She did say in the back that she really took writer's liberties with this book because there just isn't enough information. She took the crime, which was about this one guy basically knocking off women. I remember there was a Hell Night in which basically this killer, the serial killer, hurt a group of women in Denver. But anyway, this kind of takes place with our main character trying to make it in a man's world at the Denver Post, and basically she's been limited to society pages, and this terror of the night, if you will, the serial terror of the night is now basically whacking women on the head with some kind of weapon and knocking them unconscious. Nobody knows why. Not all of them die and whatnot. And he's not getting a lot of attention, and she kind of is like, we need to alert women about this. He's attacking women. Why isn't this like front page news and blah blah blah. And then we have the police detective that is dealing with some trauma from his own childhood of his dad being murdered, wanting to protect his sister and all kinds of things. And so he's also battling one of the top policemen that basically want to make it as chief or top chief or whatever it is. So he's got his battles, she has her battles. Both are trying to prove their worth with wherever they are. And in all of this, you have the point of view of your serial killer, who basically is women need to stay at home and do what they're supposed to do, and he has his own points of view about this. So that's kind of the gist of the story. And then basically, okay, there's a lot more, but I think that kind of gives you a generic idea. Here's where I really struggled with this book. The killer was pulled out of nowhere. Here's a spoiler. The killer was pulled out of nowhere. I was trying to figure out, based on the clues, because I was like, oh, this will be fun. I don't know anything about this crime. This will be fun trying to figure out the whodunit. And he's pulled out of nowhere. I don't even know this character from the whole book. So if that's something that's important to you, that will be a frustrating thing, because it was very Sherlock Holmes. At the last minute, you're just like, where did this person come from? I don't recall this person at all in the book, other than his point of view throughout the story. But I could not have gathered that from any of the characters here. So this, again, it just bugged me. There were some things in here that were predictable, and I called it. So, it was fun, but it was definitely probably my least favorite. The character, yeah, not only is she trying to prove herself to the Denver Post people, she's trying to prove her worth to her father, who again thinks every woman should be home doing the right thing. It's just old. It's just old. I feel like I'm reading that so much. Okay, I finally finished Tree of Life, Book 1, In at the Hidden Run. This is by Olivia Newport. This one I appreciated because this took me months to read. But it was a book that I could pick up and know where I left off and continue on with no problem. That was awesome. In this one we have a character who pretty much is running from her family, in the sense that her family's expectations. So her family expects her to be a doctor. She's got a whole line of doctors in the family, and she has no desire to be a doctor. And it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel back for all of them. This is a dual timeline, so you kind of go back in time to pretty much where that character ends up as a person. The other main character here is a father and a daughter, and I love it. He reminds me so much of my family. If any of you have ever seen the movie You Can't Take It With You with Jimmy Stewart and the guy that plays Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. Well, it's funny. I didn't like that. Just clicked. They both in there. That's funny. From them, it's not Jean Crane. Oh my goodness, what is her name?
Justine Moron.
No, I can't remember her name. It's right here. There you go. Anyway, that movie and the family dynamics and the craziness of it all, that's what I grew up with, y'all. And the father reminds me so much of him, but he has the wisdom of the patriarch in that movie. He just reminds me so much of him. And then the daughter is a coffee fiend, ancestry-loving chick. And so she is basically, she built ancestries and family trees, and so she's trying to piece together the tree for this mysterious woman that has come into this small town and is working at the bed and breakfast. You have other characters that are hilarious. They just all work together. It was a really enjoyable book. I loved it. It was fun. It was probably like 3.5 again because it is slow, and you have the dual timeline. And the dual timeline, let me mention that, it is during a pandemic, and this was written in 2019, and I thought that was so interesting because unless you had insight as to what 2020 was going to be like, there are some things about this pandemic that are just like, wow. So definitely some research done there, and it was pretty fascinating. So that's going to be the wrap up of the books that I have gotten done since the last wrap up, and that's only part of them because I happen to know that I have read several Ever After mysteries that I have not talked about, and actually some of them have been audiobooks that my son and I have been listening to because he got caught in on it and now he wants to enjoy them all. So stay tuned for that when I can get around to filming that. But we have a piano teacher due any second, and so I need to get in, and yeah. So thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, have another cup of coffee, and for the love of Pete, read another chapter.